So thank you for coming this Friday afternoon, lovely Friday here in Santa Barbara. We're really happy to have you guys here tonight. So my name is Natalie Michael. I am the newly hired program assistant here at the Scheinfeld Center at Santa Barbara City College. Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be joining the team. And we have a wonderful event planned for you here today, and it promises to inspire you on your entrepreneurial journey. The event is hosted by the Scheinfeld Center of Entrepreneurship and Innovation and the Small Business Development Center. Now, let's do a show of hands. Who's familiar with the Scheinfeld Center? Raise your hand. Ooh, awesome. Pretty much everybody, it looks like, so that's great. The Scheinfeld Center is an important resource for you and our community. So briefly, I want to make sure you all understand what we offer to benefit you entrepreneurially. At the Scheinfeld Center, we are all about helping entrepreneurs shine. Whether you want to start or grow a business or apply entrepreneurial skills within your job or transfer to a four-year institution, we can help you do that through academics, hands-on learning, and business support. So, at the core of the Scheinfeld Center is our academic program that enables you to build your business in the classroom and earn a degree certificate at the same time. Whether you want to shore up a gap in your entrepreneurial skills, start a business, or grow your existing business, our classes will help you do that. And since entrepreneurship is all about doing, we complement our academic program with events, hands-on experiences, and resources that assist your entrepreneurial development. This event is one example, and another one that we have coming up around the corner is our new Venture Challenge. It's a business plan and pitch competition coming up on April 29th. The new Venture Challenge is open to college and high school students alike throughout the region. Check out our website for more information. I'll be sharing the website here at the end of this intro. And we also have another popular offering, the Enterprise Launch Program, in which students rapidly launch a product or service in one single semester, and they earn 3 credits at the same time. This is our own version of Shark Tank, and our next session will begin in fall 2016. Just a quick note, we have students who are launching multi-million-dollar businesses, so it could be a great choice for your rapid start or business idea. One of the greatest challenges students have is bridging the gap between their academics and actually working. We help solve this challenge through our internship program that enables students enrolled in any academic discipline to intern with local entrepreneurial and international businesses. We advocate for paid internships and real-life experience that benefits the intern and internship sponsor alike. We continuously maintain a great pool of interns and internship sponsors. And finally, wrapped around everything we offer is our Small Business Development Center, which is a community, state, and federally funded organization that provides no-cost business coaching and consulting to the business community and to students. We are also a center for international trade development that helps businesses expand internationally. It is important that you know these resources are available to everyone in this room and within the community who need assistance with startup, financing, creating and retaining jobs, increasing sales, and expanding internationally. So, there's a ton of great stuff we have on offer. For more information, like I said, you can visit us. But we also have a great website here, scheinfeld.sbcc.edu. Pay it a visit. And you can see we've got links to all of the different programs here for more information. And special thanks is due, of course, none of what the Scheinfeld Center offers would be possible without the generosity of the late Jim Scheinfeld. And here's Jim at work. Jim and his wife, Elna Scheinfeld, provided the endowment on which the Scheinfeld Center was started. And we are fortunate today to have Elna Scheinfeld joining us. If Elna is here, is this Elna? Hi, Elna. Perfect timing. So huge thanks to Elna for providing her continued support and for also being with us here today. And we would also like to recognize Bonnie Chavez, our department chair of the Business Administration Department. We appreciate everything you do, Bonnie, at the Scheinfeld Center, so thank you very much. And now, without further ado, I would like to welcome our moderator this afternoon. So please welcome the Executive Director of the Scheinfeld Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, Julie Sampson.
Hi, everybody. Hey, it's so great to see you here. Thank you so much for your support. And I just want to say we are here for you as aspiring business owners or existing business owners. So please utilize us as a resource. There's nothing greater that we could do from our standpoint than to continue to help our community be a strong entrepreneurial hub. And I would like to say it is with great pleasure that I introduce our renowned entrepreneur, designer, and business advisor, Marty Neumeier, as our special guest today. Marty's mission is to bring the principles and processes of creativity to industry. As a recognized thought leader in brand strategy, innovation, and creativity, Marty is the author of a series of whiteboard books. These are concise and practical books that have been hailed as breakthroughs by Fast Company magazine, Business Week, and Harvard Business Review. But that's not all. Let's take a closer look. The brand gap is widely considered as a foundation of modern brand building. ZAG is named as one of the top 100 business books all time for insights into brand strategy. The Designful Company is a guide to building a culture of nonstop innovation, and we at the Scheinfeld Center have adopted it as a handbook for 2016. Marty's recent book, The 46 Rules of Genius, lays out a universal map to innovation mastery. And operating ahead of the curve in 1996, Marty founded the very first journal about design thinking, Critique Magazine. He has worked closely with innovative companies such as Apple, Netscape, Sun Microsystems, HP, Adobe, Google, and Microsoft to help advance their brands and cultures. Today, he serves as Director of Transformation for Liquid Agency in Silicon Valley and travels extensively as a workshop leader and speaker on the topics of innovation, brand, and design. Between trips, he and his wife divide their time between Santa Barbara, San Jose, and Southwest France. Please give a warm welcome to Marty Neumeier. Come on up.
Good.
There we are.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. So, Marty, before we get started here, I just wanted to express our extreme gratitude for taking time out of your very full schedule to spend a couple hours with us, sharing your journey and your insights and perspectives that are going to undoubtedly inspire us all. We really appreciate that. Thank you. To begin, you are a designer, and right up front here, I'd like for us all to get on the same page about what that actually means, because you're involved in branding and graphic design, but being a designer is much more than that. So maybe you could talk to your role as a designer and what it is that you do.
Well, okay, where do I start with this? Design is a big topic. It's becoming bigger as business realizes there's a value in design beyond posters and toasters, is what we used to call it. Designing things to be printed and designing objects and appliances. Design is now a very important tool in innovation, because what it allows you to do is put ideas on the table that weren't there before. Okay, so this is huge if you want to innovate. And so the best way to explain that is, so the traditional business decision is made in two steps. You know something, and then you do something. So it's know and do. You know something because, well, you've done it before, or you had a case study at Harvard, or you read something in Fast Company, or you did it at your last company, whatever. You believe you know how to do something, problem comes up, you immediately apply that knowledge, and then you do something, right? And so it's kind of bada bing, bada bang. Which is fine for ordinary tasks, but if you're trying to innovate, doing something the way it was done before is not useful, it's not helpful. So what designers started saying was, well, wait a minute, do we really know what we thought we knew? How do we know that? And if we can imagine something that we haven't done before and then test it, prototype it, test it, we might know something new, and that would change doing. So now the process looks like know, make, do. It's that making step that design adds. And so that's more than just someone making an object or a piece of communication according to some pre-existing strategy. It's actually getting in at the beginning and saying, well, let's look and see what the strategy could be or should be. So it's becoming much more powerful. It just happened to get started in the applied arts, but now it's much bigger. Now, I started just as one of those people designing posters, really, and I designed a lot of posters, actually. We don't have posters very much anymore, but I designed hundreds of them, I think. And so I was trained as a designer. I went to Art Center College in Los Angeles, came out and struggled and figured out how to do it and spent 10 years mastering it and so forth. But I realized after doing this for about maybe 20 years that the skill goes far beyond just designing those kinds of things. And it's very useful in creating business strategies, for example.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. So I like how you kind of went back in time, and let's go back actually even further. Could you tell us about when you first recognized that you had this design as your calling?
Well, I don't want to discourage you, because some people, when they hear this, they go, well, of course, that's cheating. No, I knew when I was 7. When you're in school and you have to write a theme, they call them themes. Do they still call them themes? You write a little paper, it says what you want to do when you grow up, and other kids are writing, well, I want to be a fire truck, or something, whatever. And I went, no, I want to be a commercial artist. And everyone said, what's that? Well, my mother had been trained to do that, so I knew that it existed, and she could draw like you couldn't believe. She would be on the phone, not even thinking about and drawing these beautiful faces and scenes and stuff, just like without half of her mind, just doing that. And I just thought, that's magic, And so I said, could you teach me how to do that? She said, sure. We sat down, and right away I sort of got it. I wasn't any good, but I got it. I saw how it was possible to do that. And so, it gave me kind of a leg up in first grade. Everybody else is learning how to read, and I'm drawing these clipper ships, and look at this, a penguin, and people are going, wow. And it just hit me that, well, this is who I am. So I had this probably false belief that I was destined to do this. And once I knew that, I really didn't put too much work into it. I just knew that that's what I was going to do, and everything else was sort of secondary. And once in a while, I'd work at it a little bit, but I don't think I was aggressively determined to be the next Picasso or something. I just had that in my mind that that's who I am. So I consider that an advantage, actually, because most of us are so capable of doing so many things, we can't decide. Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so that's a problem. How do you decide?
Right.
It's like we have this shopper's twitch from having so many choices. We're always thinking, if I do this, then I can't do that. Oh no, maybe I made the wrong choice. So it's paralyzing.
Yeah. Barry Schwartz, The Paradox of Choice, he talks about
there
that.
There you go. Paradox of choice.
Yeah, there we go. And so, okay, so that's great that you had this concept and then you were in the environment and with the support of your mother. And as you went along, I mean, at 7 years old, that's a really young time to realize what you're going to be doing the rest of your life.
It's
so
ridiculous, actually.
it really takes a support structure actually through that time for you to hang on to that.
Well, I don't know that my parents were always going, yeah, he's going to be a designer, he's going to be an artist. No, I don't think they thought that at all. That was just me. It's
Okay.
in my imagination, and I thought maybe everybody knew it, but I was surprised to find that when I graduated from high school, my father says, well, okay, so what are you going to do? I said, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be a designer, or commercial artist at the time. And he goes, no, you're not. I said, no, you know I've always wanted to do that. So I had no idea. No, you're not going to do that. You're not going to starve. So in his mind, artist, starving, says you're going to be an accountant, you're going to be a lawyer, something practical, You can be an artist on the weekend if you want, but no, you're not going to do that, and we're not going to support that. So what do you do in that situation? There's a little bit of a conflict. Fathers and sons don't always get along that well anyway. So this is sort of like, I'm going to the mat on this one. But what happened, I was lucky. A teacher in my high school who was observing all this creative activity on my part, I didn't know him, but he kind of surreptitiously arranged a tour to Art Center for the students. And there was about 20 of us going. We all brought our fathers or mothers to go take this tour of the art school. And later I found out he arranged the whole thing for me. It's just really nice. He goes, maybe these other guys will go and do it too, but it's a fun thing to do, and I know you need it. So he saw the problem. And so we got to the school, and my father's walking down the hallways and he sees all these drawings of nude women and stuff, and some other stuff he doesn't understand. And he's really determined now, this is never going to happen. We turn around the corner and the tour guide says, and this is where we designed the cars for Detroit. Open the doors and all these model cars are in there, and they're full-size models and little models and gigantic drawings and lots of math and all this kind of stuff. And that was it. He said he saw it. He saw it. He goes, yeah, there could be money in this. This could be good. So I skated through that one, but no, it's. I don't think it's like that anymore. I think most people know that you could be a graphic designer or a web designer, and there's money in that. So it's a little bit changed.
Yeah, okay, so then you mentioned that you went to the Art Center College of Design, and that's in Pasadena, right?
Now it is. It was in Hollywood at the time.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
Great. And so we get the question a lot, for entrepreneurs, is formal education relevant? Or is it a good idea just to go out there and just go hands-on? And I was wondering, from your background and also from your perspective that you have with innovation in the world of work, what do you think about that?
Let me see. How do I put this? Because this is a complicated question. I would say that lots of entrepreneurs can hardly wait to get out there and do stuff and see it happen. They want to mess with the world, right? They want to do some things and see some results. And some of them don't have the patience to go to take a formal education. However, I think the formal education is completely valid. I just think a lot of entrepreneurs don't have the patience to go through it. So maybe they go halfway through it, or maybe they dip into it a little bit. And I think the ones that are very systematic and go through all these years often don't end up being entrepreneurs, but I think they'll end up being something great. It takes a lot of work to get through Stanford or something, Yeah. But I was in the other camp where I went to Art Center, which was amazing to me, and I loved every minute, but I still could hardly wait to get out. I quit halfway through so I could try to get a job in an advertising agency, and they were very polite and said, it's a very interesting portfolio. Martin, is that your name? I would suggest you finish your education and come back to us, and I think there might be a position waiting for you. We'll see. And I went, oh, okay, so I'm not going to take the world by storm. But that was just me. I just could hardly wait to get out there. So I did not learn well in informal situations. I'm much better at it now. But you have to learn. You have to learn somehow. So how are you going to do it? You have to figure out your path. And it can be a combination of school and, I would say, reading books is probably how I learned so much, just quietly trying to figure all this stuff out from a distance, just trying to read it and figure out. And also having mentors and working in real situations is huge, huge.
Yes.
To have a good mentor or just a group of people that where you can learn from each other. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great. And so you mentioned that, or I know that once you got out of school or left school, that you started your first company actually here in Santa Barbara, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so how, that was the Neumeier design team that you
No,
started?
actually, there was another one that I don't talk about very much because it was short-lived. But
Are you going to talk about it here?
it's probably first time ever. I got together with a couple of friends from college, high school and college. So 3 of us, we started a company making alternative greeting cards. Because I was a designer, and that's one thing I could handle. I could design them and get them printed, and one of the partners was a writer. And the other one was a business guy. He was working at U.S. Steel in a sort of corporate job where he was very junior, but he's very entrepreneurial. So I convinced him that he should give up that comfort and work for no money and starve with the rest of us. and he said, I can hardly wait. And we did it for 3 years, and we hit a bump and went out of business overnight. Made a bad decision with some investors, but it was a good education of trying to figure out, probably like a lot of you are doing, just trying to figure it out. How do you get stuff produced? How do you get a business license? How do you deal with taxes, payroll? How do you get distribution? How do you get noticed in the world? All these things we're struggling through, and you just try things, and if it doesn't work, you try something else. The
Right.
essence of being an entrepreneur is being very practical and not bound by any plan that's not working. If it's not working, then the plan is faulty, and you've got to start over. You just have to keep trying things, and when it's working, you do more of that. And so it was a good lesson. Good lesson. But then I found myself on the street, and I needed to make money quickly. And the quickest way to make money is to be a professional, like a freelance something, And so I became a freelance designer. Took me about a year to get my first client, and then it was fine after that. Yeah.
Okay. And so if we could go back to that bit that you said about the investor, this is one of the challenges that we hear from our students is really breaking into that space and understanding how to navigate the whole investor space. And I was wondering if from your experience you have any suggestions of what to do or not to do.
Well, it's a scary proposition, isn't it? You have this idea, and then someone's willing to invest some money into it, and they want 30% of your business or something. So I'm not the best one to ask there, because I've always been I've kept my business closely held. I've self-financed whenever I could, and sometimes that was the downfall of the company, is because I didn't have another investor. I had a company that I paid for everything myself. I had the money to do it, but and so when it went out of business, I took the total hit. But I don't know if I would have done it differently. So
Okay.
I think I would have not done it that way, but I think I would have paid for it myself.
Okay. And then, so you were here about 10 to 15 years in Santa Barbara, working as a designer,
15.
and then you moved to Silicon Valley. And so
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could tell me, tell us what motivated that move, and you had a team here? Did they go with you, or?
I did have a team. Small team. I mean, I've always had a small design firm. Whatever firm I had is small, less than 15 people. And I think we had 5 employees. So I didn't know exactly what we'd do. I started. I knew I had to get out of Santa Barbara some way, or extend beyond Santa Barbara. It's just the market. Well, I was the first graphic designer in Santa Barbara. No one knew what it was. And so I spent most of my time trying to explain to potential clients why it's a good idea to spend more than they thought they ever would on this thing called graphic design. And I never got as much as I would have in a city where people actually know what it is and value it. So I spent a lot of time doing that. And then, but it was just, I had a family, a daughter that was eventually going to need a college education, and I just could not get anywhere here. It was just too hard. And I didn't want to leave. Nobody wants to leave Santa Barbara, so, right? So it was tough. It was really tough, but I had to. The last year, let's see, so, it was a small business, and it really was hard to get just to make enough to pay the rent. And the last year, I was making maybe half of the top that I ever made. It was just really bad. I think it was $17,000 in revenues. It was just like, you can't live on that. At the same time, I was getting nationally known for the work I was doing, so that just didn't make any sense. And thought about moving to London because there was great design happening there, and I tried to do it, and it didn't work out right away, and I kind of got discouraged. And then I thought, let's be more practical. Where can I be that I'd want to live? And I started hearing things about Silicon Valley. This company called Apple something, and a few others, and asked around, and people said, oh yeah, Silicon Valley, they're rich up there. They're just making so much money. I said, really? I've never even heard of it. So I started researching it and finding out that all these amazing creative companies, like within 10 square miles of each other, like all there, and they know each other, and they're future forward and all this. And I said, wow, if I had an office there, I could have access to all these clients, where in Santa Barbara there's maybe 2 that I could get here, and then the rest are someplace else, So we packed up the dogs and the cats and the birds and the daughter. Oh yeah, the daughter. And drove our little Tercel up there to Palo Alto, and eventually bought a house there, and immediately we were making 4 times as much as the top we ever made. So it's an amazing difference. It wasn't even close. So from that standpoint, wonderful choice. Saying Santa Barbara would not have ever done me any good. But it was hard, I remember when we first moved out there, our daughter was just miserable. She was 13 at the time, didn't know anybody, just going into high school, had to start high school the next week or something. She wouldn't come out of her room. We were got halfway unpacked, and we just didn't have the heart to finish. We were so depressed that we had to leave beautiful Santa Barbara and live in ugly old Palo Alto. We were. My wife tells a story where she was in the Menlo Park post office waiting in those long lines, and there's 2 women in front of her were talking, and one of them said to the other, "Isn't it great to live in Menlo Park? It's just the best place in the world, isn't it?" And my wife burst into tears. So, and every night after work, we'd go into this little cottage that was soon to be my office, and all our stuff was piled up there, and we had a TV working in there. We didn't have it working in the house, and we'd watch this movie, Local Hero, about the oil man who goes to Scotland, a small village in Scotland, and has to buy the town, and his life changes because he's in this little town. Anybody seen that? It's you got to see that. I mean, that's amazing. And, tears rolling down our faces because it was we left Santa Barbara. So, not to complain, though, it was actually a great move, and we ended up coming back.
Yeah.
But, so we moved up there and hired people right away, and my first clients were Adobe, Sun Microsystems, which was really a big deal at the time, National Semiconductor, Apple shortly after that. So no shortage of work there. I mean, it's a completely different experience. Instead of trying to squeeze out a little bit of money from people, it's you don't know where to go next. It's this, if you can walk out the door, you have work.
Right. Yeah. So fabulous. So things are going well for you up there, and that's where you launched Critique magazine and all of that. And then you were also up there when the .com bubble burst, and that was around 2001.
What goes up must come down. Right?
Yeah. So what was your personal experience of that, and how did that affect your company?
It put it out of business. Yeah, two businesses. Yeah, I mean, we were flying high for 10 years or something, doing well. It seems to be doing better and better. And we had this business, very successful business, designing software packages that you would find in a store with the software in it. Nowadays, you just download it, but then you went to a store like Egghead Software or CompUSA, where all the computers were, and you picked it off of a shelf and went home and installed it. And those had to be sold in packages. In fact, that was the main vehicle for that. And at the time, I was thinking, I had learned that the smaller your niche, the higher your the higher your profits are going to be. Like if you can own something nobody else owns, and it's valuable and growing, you got it made. You can charge anything you want. There's no other choice. You're the only one. So from then on, I decided I would be the only one at whatever I was doing. It's too good. You have to do this, okay? And so when you're learning, starting out, you copy people, you learn from people, you have to. But eventually, you can figure out how to do something that only you can do or only you will do. And that's where you start to, life gets better. Mm-hmm. You start to sort of self-actualize. You are more, people ask your opinion instead of telling you what to do, those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so what I understand from looking at your background, that you bounced back from this time, actually, like around 2003, you started Neutron think tank.
Right, so what happened was I was doing the packaging, and I had started the first magazine on design thinking, which was not making money. So the packaging business was supporting this other business, so we had to work twice as hard, basically, 2 jobs to make less money. Mm-hmm. And but the idea was eventually this magazine business would turn into a little empire, and it was really rough going. Our business model wasn't quite right, and things were changing really quickly. The web was coming along, and people were getting everything they wanted free. Just starting to, and we couldn't really tell that was going to happen. Mm-hmm. So we were spending a lot of money on that, and then the dot-com bust happened, and all of our tech clients just said, well, we're going to put a hold on that project. We had like 7 or 8 big projects where they just went on hold indefinitely while they figured out what they were going to do. Stock market had just collapsed, and shortly after that, 9/11 happened, and that just made everybody just freak out. They didn't know what was, nobody was feeling strong at that point. And so that pretty much put the cap on both businesses. I closed the magazine with a lot of debt. The other business, I had just let everybody go. Then I found out that, so here I am, I take all these magazines that haven't been sold, I'm selling them little by little as back issues, and all this equipment that we built up for 15 people and moved it into a little warehouse with me in the middle, everything's piled up. I had 1 employee left, and she was doing the books. She was the office manager, and I let her go eventually. And when I did that, I had to take over the books. All right, so back to that. So I got all the QuickBooks and everything, and I started going through all the stuff, and I started finding all these irregularities. And I found out she had been stealing money, not just a little bit. The whole time we had the magazine. So the magazine that wasn't succeeding was because she had been stolen all the profits, essentially the same amount. And I thought, wow, she's smarter than I thought to be able to do this. No, she wasn't smarter. I was dumber. I was so stupid that after a couple of years, I just started trusting her, and that's when she sort of kicked in and just started taking advantage of the company. Then I found out that 1 in 4 employees is stealing from a company, just as an average, 1 in 4, something. Mm-hmm. So obviously someone with access to the bank accounts is going to be kind of dangerous. And I had no idea because I was living in this golden bubble at that time. So I had to deal with that, get to the bottom of it. It took about 6 months to get through every bit of theft and try to get some of the money back, and at the same time figure out how I was going to get some income. And then I wrote a book. So during that time, like in a couple hours a day while I was going through checks and trying to figure out what happened, I was writing a book, and that book became the basis of my next business, which was a reinvention of my business, because it was design, but it was designed for corporations internally to help them understand about design and branding and innovation. So they needed to learn about all this stuff, and so that was our goal, and it was almost an immediate success. It was much easier than selling business ideas to designers. Selling design ideas to businesses was magic. It was easy. So that's kind of, I'm still on that track. I'm writing books and talking to companies about this subject. I just no longer have any staff, or have somebody else to do all that stuff. So
Right.
No more spreadsheets, no more employees, which is good for me at my age.
Right, yeah.
I'll live longer.
Well, and so what you're talking about is in 2009 you merged Neutron with Liquid Agency.
Yeah.
And so what was it that the two companies could do together better than?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, when I started Neutron, I noticed them because they were doing very good design, and they had this idea that business strategy and design needed to be equal partners, and that just didn't exist in the design community. They thought that businesses should learn more about design, and they're not going to even learn anything about business except how to run their own businesses. So, but I saw these guys were like, they're embracing strategy, business ideas, and so forth, and I went, that's great to have that business sense, but also do beautiful quality work at the same time. Usually you get one or the other. And so I had my eye on them, and they had their eye on me, because they're thinking, this guy knows a lot about strategy and branding, and we don't know that much. And they started hiring me to come and talk to their clients. They'd pay me to speak at a breakfast meeting or something, and this is how they sort of got new clients, is by having me be the draw for these potential clients. Yeah. And we hit it off, and then when I was ready to do something, I went back to them, and I said, I'm looking to be acquired. And they could, don't go no further, you're in, let's do it. So it took about 2 weeks. Wow. It was just a good fit.
Yeah.
It took me a while to think of them, because I was looking for bigger companies and wasn't getting anywhere. And I talked to my business guru, and he said, well, who loves you? I went, oh, look at it that way. Liquid Agency, but they're not very big. He says, so what? Talk to them and see what they'll do. And it turned out to be okay.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. And you had mentioned that merger was actually a good platform for you as an author. It
was.
Yeah.
Because the way we arranged it was I don't have to do any ongoing work with clients. I can pick and choose. They just wanted me to keep writing books and going around the world talking about them and drawing more attention to them and more clients through me. And I would get work from them on certain, they get a new client like Cisco or something, and they'd want to start a new sub-brand, and they'd get me in to do some workshops, and then I'm free to go and do something else. Or I could say, no, I'm busy. Mm-hmm. So I got to get a salary and get paid for all these things. So it's quite nice, and it's sufficient, more than sufficient, and I don't have a lot of responsibility to, I don't have deadlines and things. And that's, when you're young, you can do it, you can handle it. When you get older, it's like, maybe not so much. Maybe all the rushing around is not necessary.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
Okay, and so with the, when you, so you have done this merger, and now you've got this freedom to write the books and everything. What is the average day for Marty Neumeier look like these days?
Every day's the same. I work. When you're an entrepreneur, you'll learn that your time is your own as long as you're willing to put in about 80 hours a week of it. But you can do it however you want. It's just you can't ever stop taking care of it. You are taking care of yourself. So, and you get into that habit, and you start, if you get into a position where you're doing what you really love to do, then you want to work every day doing the same thing, and it's like, oh, a vacation? No. But no, I love vacations too, so that's all part of it. That's all part of it. You schedule it. You just schedule that vacation. It's just part of your job. Yeah, so what was the question?
I think you answered it.
No, work, yeah. So my typical days, my mornings are my most creative period for me. Some people at night, but most people are morning people. I'm doing a lot of writing, so that's the time I would sit down at a desk and just write for hours. And time flies when I'm doing that kind of work, so probably by 3 o'clock I'm done and I can do something else, do some chores, do something outside, read a book or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's just, going down into that office, down into the office. It's at the bottom of the house. Yeah, but I love it. So it's not, people say, when are you going to retire? It's like, well, what fun would that be? I mean, I can't imagine that anything that could be more fun. I can imagine having more time for friends and family, and definitely I get that. So I have that now.
Yes, you have that now.
You don't have that when you're younger and being an entrepreneur. Your life is not balanced. It probably cannot be very, very balanced, I think.
Yeah, and I think that you're a really good example of agility as an entrepreneur, because you're able to launch your own business, but you're also able to go within an existing business or create this new entity, where, essentially you're working for them, and so, but you still have all this freedom. And so I think that's a really good example. It's not always, being an entrepreneur isn't always just about having your own business. I think it's about this agility.
Right. Well, my own business is about other people's businesses. So yeah, it's nice that I get to drop in on these businesses and see how they do it, learn about their business models and what their concerns and challenges are. And I see so many different kinds of businesses that eventually you start to see patterns emerge, and then you recognize those patterns as you can create principles from those and apply those to other businesses. So the more you see, the better you get at it, and the more humble you get too, because you realize there's no way you can know everything. You can't predict the future. When you look at someone who's got a successful business, you think they're golden, but they worked hard and they got lucky, and maybe when they start another business, they won't be so lucky. So there's a lot of things you can't control, but if you can control half of them, I think you're doing good.
Yeah, and that kind of brings us to something that you've said, that today's widespread unemployment is not a job crisis. You've said it's a talent crisis.
Yeah, I think so.
That technology will claim every job that doesn't need a high degree of creativity, humanity, or leadership. And then you provided a useful framework for conceptualizing both the problem and the solution. And you call that your robotic curve. And I was wondering if you could walk us through that.
The robot curve is it's a mental model for understanding what's happening to us right now. I needed this for myself, but also I saw it in operation over and over in Silicon Valley, where things are sped up, time is sped up. Companies grow and die really quickly, and you can see what works and what doesn't. And the robot curve is just this idea that business moves in this sort of constant waterfall of opportunity and obsolescence. And businesses start at the top of the waterfall, and it starts with somebody being creative, right? So creative skills are really important, and creative skills that's where you want to spend your life, doing creative things, right? It's more fun. So with creativity, you're doing unique things. You're autonomous. No one's telling you what you have to do. You're deciding. The work you do is non-routine, which is a kind of legal term for, anything that can be patented has to be non-routine. So if you have the ability to make things that didn't exist before, all this takes imagination and creativity and design and so forth. you can create some very valuable concepts, products, and so forth, right? So that's where you want to get eventually. And that's where the people who start businesses are. They're up there, the really good businesses. But what I've noticed is as soon as we understand that creative skill, we turn it into, what is it here? We turn it into skilled work. So we take creative work, turn it into skilled work. So skilled work is professional work. It's what lawyers do, designers do, doctors. You can go to school and learn it. That's skilled work, and it's still great work. But you're not making your decisions completely on your own. You're not autonomous. You have a boss or you have a client telling you what to do. But it's still great. It's good money. But it's less creative than that higher thing. But what happens is, you can make money turning a creative skill into a professional skill, right? So you can start a college, for example, teaching people how to do this. So that's what happens. As soon as you can turn something into something a little bit more robotic, you do. Okay, so if this skilled work gets well enough understood, we turn it into rote work, right? We make a formula out of it. It's like, now we know how to do this, so we can outsource it. It'll be cheaper. So every time it goes down this waterfall, it gets cheaper and less valuable. But somebody's making money from it, higher up the curve, right? So then you take these rote skills, and if we can turn that into an algorithm or a software program, we're going to do it, because you can make money doing that and sell it even cheaper. More people can have it. All right, but it's worth less money. And so all the way down to the last stop is, that's robotic work, if it's software. So you have this constant waterfall, and we're all being swept over the waterfall with it, right? Because every time we learn something, someone else is going to try to turn that into a routine, if they can, right? There's some things that are difficult. Being a waiter, for example, but it wasn't very high up the curve anyway. So, but those kinds of things will kind of stay the same. So that's how money gets made, as we go down this waterfall from creative work to skilled work to rote work to robotic work. And so that's why robots are here to stay, computers are here to stay, because they do things cheaper. And guess what? The jobs are disappearing. Those jobs are disappearing. But if you swim back up to the top, plenty of room up there, right? Plenty of room at the creative part. So I think the problem is, during the whole last century, we were all taught to do this rote work, because factories did that, and that's how you can make enough money for your family. Rote work is fine. We weren't taught to be creative, because that would be disruptive, being creative. We were taught to just obey and memorize. Well, we don't have to obey anymore, really. It's not really helping. We don't have to memorize. We have Wikipedia now, so all that stuff, we just go look it up. It's not, you have to memorize some things, but you don't have to memorize as much general knowledge as you had to before. So that's what's happening, and we're not being taught this stuff, and so now we have to catch up. We're just in that paradigm shift between these two eras, between the industrial age and what I'm calling the robotic age. So we have to scramble here for a minute, but education needs to catch up. And when it does, we'll be back on an even keel. And but I think it's going to require a new kind of education, not just a little bit more of the same or something. It's going to be a whole different way of looking at education that is more in tune with creativity and getting up that robot curve. So that's in my book. If anyone wants to read, if you have the patience to read something that's philosophical, meta skills, it's all in there. The robot curve and all that.
Yes, yeah. And so you talk about in meta skills, and then I think you distilled it further in your 46 Rules of Genius about these skills that can help keep you ahead of the robot curve, keep you going up to the top. And I was wondering, you talk about genius, but how do you define that exactly? And is that only available to a few who have the right DNA? No.
Well, that's the myth, is that, your IQ determines your genius, but we're sort of finding that's not really true. And genius has been measured by obeying and memorizing, mostly. So those sorts of things. And some people have a mind for that, and it's valuable. It's a valuable skill, but it's not very valuable now. And so we have to define genius a little bit differently. No, I think almost everyone can be a genius at something, at some scale. And maybe not at a world scale, but at a local scale or a personal scale, you can be a genius, and you should. You should be. There are people that have had serious handicaps that have become geniuses. I mean, they've figured out how to do it by just focusing on what they could do, not what they couldn't do. Right?
Okay, yeah, and is it, I think I've heard you say that it's about picking one thing that you can do well and continuing with it and adding other things to it?
It's picking that thing you can be passionate about, that magnetizes your mind because it's so interesting to you that you can't stop paying attention to it and caring about it, and then finding that overlap between what the world, I draw this little diagram, this dumb diagram, but I think it's really true. So you have a big circle and it says world, and you have a smaller circle and it says you, and where those circles overlap, where the world needs something that it's willing to pay, and is willing to pay for it, and you want to do it, that overlap is where you're going to find the most happiness and success. Not that you can't do other things, and not that the world doesn't need other things, but that overlap is where you connect with the world. And you can get almost instant success there. You can feel successful right away. The trick is finding that thing that other people don't want to do or can't do, right? That the world needs. And that overlap is going to move during your life. You're going to change where you're going to change what you want to do, and the world's going to change what it needs and is willing to pay for it at any given time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you talk about education needing to change, I'm wondering what kind of opportunities students should look for, and we should look for it. It almost sounds like getting away from the theoretical type of curriculum and getting more into the hands-on, experiential.
Getting away from the academic approach to learning. I would say it's more about projects. If more learning was project-based, and then you had to learn whatever you needed to learn to make that project go, and you had to maybe collaborate on projects a little bit more, that would be more like the real world. Mm-hmm. Grammar school is one thing. Grammar school is almost everything is useful, and if you actually learned everything you were supposed to learn in grammar school, that's a great education right there. If you could read and write and do basic math, there's no stopping you after that. You don't even need high school. If you're motivated, you just could take that information, read books, and go for it, right? And so where it gets lost is in high school, because in high school they start preparing you for college, and there's just more of that grammar school stuff at a higher level, and they're trying to keep their arms around all this learning that it's way too much for anybody to learn. It's trigonometry, it's world history, and it's a lot of stuff that's interesting, but you cannot take it all in, and add to that the fact that you're not interested in all of it, which most people are, right? I mean, when you are learning something you're interested in, you're learning about 10 times as fast, just as a rough rule of thumb. So if we can get more people learning stuff they're pretty interested in and give them opportunities to pick some projects on their own or pick their role in the projects, it's going to speed up learning, it's going to create more passion. And then you learn those other things, trigonometry maybe even, because you need to, right? Yeah. I mean, Leonardo da Vinci didn't know how to do math, right? He's polymath, he didn't know how to do math. So, but he was interested in it, and he needed it because he was trying to figure out how to do architecture and stuff, and he started figuring out his own math because he didn't go to school. So he did it by first teaching himself about geometry, right? So triangles and pyramids and cones, and figuring out the math for that, like just figuring it out on his own, basic geometry. And then he turned that into a kind of more sophisticated math, all based on volumes and things. I mean, it was kind of brilliant. And then he found out there was math. He didn't know, he just didn't know. And because he didn't have access to a library, and someone showed him where they let him into this library with all these math books, and then he just took off. But I'm guessing he wouldn't have been that interested at, say, 12 years old. He just got interested because he was trying to do stuff where math was necessary, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it's maybe a haphazard sounding way of learning, but I think it actually works better. And I've known in my own life, I wasn't very interested in high school stuff. It just went right by. I'm thinking, I'm just going to be a designer. Why am I learning this stuff? And then when I got to be a designer, I realized, wow, there's a lot of competition out there. And if I knew some other things, I could be better at this, And then I was on fire because I wanted to read everything I could that pertained to what I was doing, and I went out from there. So you learn from your interest out. You don't learn a bunch of stuff out there and then go, well, how much of this is useful? Because you kind of lose momentum, you lose your passion. So to me, keeping your passion alive is job one. I mean, however you need to do that.
Yeah. And it's probably a really good time. Let's get ready. If you have questions for Marty, you might want to make your way to the microphones, and I'm going to address one more topic before we head that way. We haven't touched...
Ixnay on the monkey.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, unky me. Okay. I don't want to talk about this, and I know you're going to. No monkeys, okay.
No monkeys?
No.
Well, let's actually, thank you for reminding me about that. So, so go ahead and tell us the story.
I blew it on. Well, we have been talking about, see, in this period between going to college and getting a job, which I call that the incompetent period. It doesn't matter how much you learn, you still have to learn how to work in the real world. And you got all these other concerns, your hormones are raging, you got, social stuff happening, how do you ever get into the world of work? And even though I wanted to be a designer my whole life, I was playing music and writing songs, and I kind of thought that would be even more fun. It's just even sexier than being a designer. I was keeping that up, with a group I was in, and we were playing and everything. And I was at art school, and somebody came up to me and said, "You ought to go to Desilu Studios, because they're doing this audition." I said, "Audition for what?" "Oh, I don't know, it's like some TV programs, like music or something, and they're looking for people that can play the guitar and stuff. And you play the guitar and you write songs, why don't you just go just get your guitar and go and see?" And so, being open to anything at that age, I drove down there, and there was this line almost around the block of people with guitars. And I got in it, and eventually I got my turn, and I played some songs, and they said, "That's pretty interesting, yeah, we'll get back to you." Later, I found out they were auditioning for the Monkees. And apparently Peter Tork got my job. Bastard. They didn't even know what they were going to be in. They had no idea what it was about. It was just this fake program of taking advantage of the celebrity of the Beatles. So that was about that time I was just going, this music thing is that I can't split my focus. I have to decide what I'm going to do. And I thought, well, design is a little less interesting to me now, but eventually, if I work on it, I can make it interesting. So I dropped all that. Later, this is probably only 10 years ago, so I was like 50 years old or something, I get a call from a company that's doing a documentary on the Monkees, the making of the Monkees, like all this time later. And they said, "We found your name on a list and you made it to the short list. You were right there." It's like, and we're doing a documentary on that, and it would be great if you could come to the studio and we'll, be part of, we'll interview you and be part of our story. God, that's amazing. I had no idea I was that close. And I was really feeling really good about this. Like, man, I must have been good. And he says, "So can you get to the studio tonight around 9 o'clock? We can start talking about it." And I said, "Well, I'm in San Francisco." And he goes, Oh, never mind."
Oh, no.
Obviously, not that important. And I hadn't thought of the Monkees until then. It's like I hadn't thought of it in so long, and then it's just like these things come out of the past and slap
It's amazing.
you.
Yeah, full circle.
Yeah, thanks, Jim.
Hey, everybody, let's give Marty a huge hand.